my name is Catherine Pratt, and today we'll be discussing the health of our oceans. So let's first begin with asking a question. So, to what effect do alterations in the global water cycle in the northern Atlantic Ocean impact or influence marine ecosystems? Now, before we kind of chop up this question and truly understand what it means, let's take a step back and look at what the water cycle is. Third grade biology, or whatever it's called. Okay, so in the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration stimulus provided to us, it starts talking about how the water cycle is a continuous cycle. So please keep that in mind while we talk about this. So we first start out with like a body of water, like the ocean. Then the process of evaporation occurs, then condensation, and then precipitation, and it all starts all over again, that cycle occurring. So another element of the water cycle that isn't really talked about that much, but will be talked about later in this presentation, is transpiration. That's basically trees and stuff, like they get the groundwater, and then that then also goes back into the atmosphere and also contributes to the condensation and precipitation that occurs. So let's first start with one of the effects on the global water cycle. So one of the effects is water pollution. As you can see in this picture, this is actually a picture taken of the Atlantic Ocean, and tons of trash in it, right? You see a lot of bottles that could potentially be recycled, but weren't. So since 1960, 3 times the amount of trash has entered the ocean, specifically the northern Atlantic Ocean, and that's a big increase if you really think about it. So water pollution, it affects the water cycle because it's not only big plastics and trash that's entering the cycle, it's also small chemicals that are also entering. And these chemicals, they stay in the water cycle. It's not like they just disappear. And as previously stated, the water cycle is continuous. The glass of water you're drinking tonight at dinner, that's the same water that's always been in the atmosphere. It doesn't go away, it's not brand new. So all these pollutants that are entering can end up in our water, and they're just affecting also marine life as well. Because as seen in this photo, this is a sea turtle eating a plastic grocery bag. They can't distinguish between a plastic grocery bag and a jellyfish. And that's a really big problem. So water pollution is having a huge impact not only on the water cycle as well as marine eco-life. Okay, so another important part is the balance of the water cycle. And so this is where we're going to be talking about that transpiration. So when deforestation occurs, not only is this really bad for the forests and everything, but you also are losing the trees. So instead of all that cool wetness and everything contributing to the condensation and precipitation that occurs in the cycle, you're now getting this dry, hot land, and that can sometimes actually contribute to droughts occurring. And obviously we understand what a drought is and how it's basically no water. And obviously that's a big impact on the water cycle because you're losing a part of that cycle that's very vital to life, not only marine life, but to our life as well. So deforestation, it contributes to this, but it's all about keeping the cycle at a balance. So let's look at the politics of it all, because we know there's a divide. There's always been a divide between Republicans and Democrats on the spectrum of whether or not climate change, which climate change is pollution and deforestation and all these things occurring, all contributes to climate change. So let's look at this. So in this line, you can see the Democrats. It's the blue line. From 1990 to now 2018, 71% of Democrats agree that climate change is a real issue that does need to be addressed. Whereas you see Republicans have kind of continuously stayed this 15% over these years. So this can kind of show you how, firstly, to make sure that we're helping out the water cycle and not harming these marine ecosystems, we first need to agree that there is an issue. So let's go back to our question. So to what effect do alterations in the global water cycle in the northern Atlantic Ocean influence marine ecosystems? So as previously stated, we talked about how the water is polluted, putting chemicals in the water, as well as putting trash that marine ecolife can eat, as well as transpiration not happening as much and droughts occurring because of deforestation. Let's look at some good things that can happen if we do some of these solutions. So by promoting more recycling, you can see that one photo, it was all plastic bottles, majority of it. So if you were to recycle, you can see more of these plastic bottles ending up where they need to be instead of ending up in our oceans. As well as if you put incentives for selective cutting down of trees. So what selective cutting is you're cutting out the weak and bad trees. And so by doing this, you're not just cutting out whole entire forests, basically. But one thing about selective cutting is that timber companies, they may not be interested in it because they'll probably lose money on this. Because instead of cutting down the trees that they need to create the lumber and stuff that they use, they're having to cut down bad trees that are already weak, and you don't really want that when you're making wood. And so these are just some things that can happen and why people aren't really going for selective cutting. But to conclude, the water cycle is a delicate system. It's just as it is, a cycle. And so it has a balance that has to be upheld in order to keep that cycle going. We, as humans, have a responsibility to be mindful of what we're doing with our trash. You have a choice. You can either recycle your water bottle or throw it away. And recycling is just kind of an easier option. You're just choosing a different bin, let's be honest. So do what you can to help out, because the water cycle isn't just vital to marine eco-life, it's also vital to human life. Thank you.
You start there. I have two questions for you. How valid and reliable were the sources that you used, and then how did you know?
Okay, so my sources were very valid because all of them I got from like academic research journals or peer-reviewed journals, as well as even the ones that I didn't get from those sites. They were all either a government site or something along those. No, they were all just government sites.
Okay, and then what advice would you have for researchers that consider doing a topic like this in the future?
I would say it's going to take some time to find the information you're going to get, and you're going to have to keep digging, because all of these connections that I just talked about, they're there, but they're not like shown, like they're not highlighted in any way. They're not just out there easy to find. You're going to have to do a little bit more digging. So just take a deep breath and just continue.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.